A wild ending to October could be in store as we have a growing signal for a storm system around that time frame, and this could go a couple days into November. We're also watching the tropics. There's a risk of a hurricane that continues to increase. And folks, there is a small, very small chance that both of these things we're going to talk about could connect on down the road. So we're going to get very detailed in this video. The first half of the video will be discussing this storm system signal. The second half will be the tropics, and we'll connect everything together as we make our way throughout the video. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So let's start it off by discussing about a week from today, a week from right now. So we're all the way out into Sunday, October the 26th. So you might look at this and say, Mitch, I don't even know what in the world I'm looking at here. So the blue is a trough, lower pressure, and then the warmer colors you see, like the yellows mixed with orange and red, this is a ridge or higher pressure. So about a week from today, we're going to watch a dip in the jet, this trough sort of dig down to the western U.S. more than likely. Of course, the further we get out away from us, the more fuzzy everything gets, the less confident we are on what's truly going to happen. This is about a week from today, so this is starting to get into that true forecast range. So we're thinking something is going to move into the western U.S. about a week from today. So a lot of blue. I don't want you to look at this and immediately think snow. I think a lot of people look at that, all this blue and kind of bluish green on your screen, and immediately think cold air and snow. Please take that out your mind for now. That potentially could be what it means. But let's continue to move forward. So we start to get into early of next week. I'm talking about the last Monday and Tuesday of October, the 27th into the 28th. This big blue blob, or this trough, kind of ejects across the middle of the country. This could just bring a whole lot of weather. It could bring a shot of cold air with it or behind it, and just some type of storm system. And then we start to get into around the 28th to the 29th of October. This trough begins to sort of amplify, and you're going to see the connection of some sort of other darker area blue down here. That is actually on the operational run of the Euro, a tropical system that we'll talk about later in the video. What could be future Melissa, our next named storm. But you see a lot of blue over the central to portions of the eastern U.S. Think of this as just some sort of active weather. What is that going to be? Is that going to be severe weather? Is that going to be snow? I'm not talking about snow all the way down here in the Gulf, but what is this going to be? That's what we got to figure out. But when you see something like this on your screen, spiking ridge, a dip in the blue here, this is some sort of unsettled weather. And then as we get into the Halloween, October the 31st, it shows a big area of bluish green right over the southeast, mid-south, etc. I posted this on Facebook, and I had to add as much context as I could without getting too detailed on something so far out. And I know a lot of people are going to see this and immediately think, Mitch, this is 300 hours out. No point of even talking about it. But I'm going to talk to you about why I'm speaking on it and how locked in model guidance is to something happening around this time frame so far out. So what is this going to bring? We're not quite sure, but this leads us all the way into the first couple days of November as we sound off October, and there's just something ongoing. So I just kind of wanted to show you the 500 millibar heights here and what this means, because we'll talk about this a lot more during the winter. Now, let's show just the operational run of the Euro, and this is just going to show precipitation, okay? This is starting off the same time frame as what we started off when I just showed you the last graphic, okay? About a week from today, next Sunday. Not a whole lot going on, but all of a sudden you're going to see a low pressure right into here, sort of eject across the plains. And you're just seeing a lot of green, splashes of orange, red, yellow, etc. This is a deep 995 millibar low ejecting off this trough that we just talked about. And I think many pieces of energy will have an opportunity to eject off the base and then fully eject, southwest, northeast at the base of this trough. So this is kind of storm system number one. What does this do? Not quite sure, but it could be a powerful storm system. And then it spins around and deepens to a 981 millibar low. Not a forecast. We're simply trying to its pattern. We're trying to figure out the pattern, recognize it, right? So far out. But this, I know it, when you look at this, you're thinking, man, this doesn't mean a whole lot to me. A 981 millibar low, that's going to bring some sort of high impact storm system if that's the way it plays out. Okay, this is not this Tuesday, it's next Tuesday, the last Tuesday of October, the 28th. Okay, does all this stuff that you see right here, is this severe weather? Not quite sure. Not enough cold air coming down with this system to really make all this green go to blue, which would be snow, just a chilly rain. But what happens? And then it gets weird. Cold air drops down. You can see that 540 line, a pocket of cold air aloft associated with the upper low with the trough. We got a strong system coming up from the tropics, the Caribbean. That would be Hurricane Melissa if this is the way it plays out. We just got a lot going on. Big surge of moisture across the eastern U.S. and there's cold air nearby. I can almost guarantee you if this is the way it plays out, this would be some northwest flow, higher elevation snow for the central and southern Alps. At the same time, you got a hurricane off the coast of the eastern U.S. This is Halloween night, okay, last night of October. And this would do something weird. And I'm going to say weird and wild a lot. There's not a lot of cold air associated with this, I will add. But 973 land cyclone over southern Ontario, that's going to create a big wind issue, a lot of rain, and just a strong storm system. What about the GFS? Now, we'll say the 18Z GFS will be running here shortly, but we're just going to stick with the 12Z GFS. Okay, we're not close enough to this to where each model run matters, really. We got to get consecutive model runs of showing something this far out, right? So same thing, we start a week from today. We can already see some sort of unsettled weather getting into the western U.S. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain in the Rockies and Cascades. And then here it is, a system ejecting across the northern states. This could bring severe weather. Who knows, it could bring snow if we get more cold air to work with. That's a 996 millibar low around the 27th, ejecting across the upper Midwest. Same thing, you see a tropical system sort of sneaking up the bottom of your screen here? This is getting awfully close to a big trough digging down. Look at this 984 millibar low. You can see pockets of dark blue embedded into this as cold air tries to get pulled and tugged down out of Canada. I'm telling you, it could get weird, it could get wild. And then you start to see more blue showing up as this is pulling down almost Arctic air down the spine of the Rockies. And you see this kind of, almost this little kind of sling right here, this kind of whiplash of rain right here. This could be strong to severe thunderstorms. And this is getting around the day 10 time frame. And then just weird. Another low pressure ejects off this trough, gets slung up into Canada. And what happens after that? That tropical system begins to leave the screen here. And then we get past day 10. We get into, October 31st. And there's not a lot of cold air at the surface to work with this. There's a lot of cold air aloft with this 540 line diving all the way down to Tennessee. But that's not cold air at the surface. That's cold air aloft, meaning in the upper levels of the atmosphere. At the surface, it could be in the 50s or 40s. But you see a lot of green over the Great Lakes region. If it was colder, this would all be snow. And it potentially could be. We're not done figuring out how cold or warm the air mass will be. But both the GFS and the Euro like the idea of not a lot of cold air working to the surface with this. And if we look at the Euro AI model, it's only going to show precipitation as green. So we don't know what's rain, what's snow. What we do know is it's 3 out of 3 here. A low pressure ejects off this trough, 997, okay? And then we get into the 29th, and here it is. Low pressure spinning down, embedded with the actual upper low here. That is the upper low with low pressures. And this is going to be the common theme here, right? I'm going to kind of draw on this a little bit. We're going to have some sort of immediate upper low right into here with low pressure sort of ejecting off the base of the trough like this. And this could bring wind events, rain events, and just nasty weather as we round off the month. And if we have any kind of connection with the tropics, it could add a entirely new element to it. So we're getting into October 31st and a big pocket of cold air aloft right over areas of the Mid-Atlantic to the Northeast, to the Great Lakes region. This could do something weird. I know I keep saying weird because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. So you sum all that up, and some might disagree with me showing you operational runs this far out, but we're just trying to simply figure out what's brewing here in the next 10 to 14 days. One thing that I'm confident in is a lot of winds. Second thing is some type of storm system, which brings the risk of a lot of winds. And what's wild to me is that the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center, the risk of high winds, this is valid between the 27th and the 2nd of November. What time frame that I just said to mention to watch out for? The end of October, first couple days into November. And this entire area in this kind of tan color right here is covering up 60, almost a good 60-65% of the lower 48. There is a slight risk of high winds, which is a 20 to 40% chance of high winds. And in this little pocket here is a moderate risk. That's a 40 to 60% chance of high winds. So this is kind of just a small way of the Climate Prediction Center seeing what we're seeing, right? And I'm not saying they're watching Mitch West videos and like, man, what is this guy saying now? Let's for it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I love to see this because it backs up what my thinkings are, not because I'm necessarily pulling for some sort of high impact weather event to happen, but just because it sort of kind of backs up what we're trying to figure out here. But the risk of high winds tells me there is a risk of low pressures ejecting off a trough and with it bringing a lot of wind energy with it. Now, a lot of people want to know about snow. One thing I'll tell you is this just does not look to bring a lot of cold air with it, but it could bring pockets of upper aloft cold air, which could bring snow to the surface. So we start off a week from today, signal for higher elevation snow in the Rockies. Now, what about the central eastern U.S.? Any kind of wacky early season stuff? Well, as we're starting to get to day 10, there is a signal for something in the central to northern high plains, even around Boulder and Denver. It's not uncommon at all to get October snow here. And then we extend this into the last day of October, and then we get all the way, let's just go throughout the entire length of the run, all the way into the morning of November 30th. It ain't a lot, but you can see a little signal here and there, and some of these are probably skewed, because remember, this makes up 51 members. There's probably a few members that show some sort of crazy snow, but there is a signal, say, for even the southern apps, the central apps, even especially in West Virginia, a little bit of a signal there. And then you look at the GFS ensemble, same thing. We start off a week from today. There ain't a whole lot. We'll go all the way out to about 360 hours out. And there is a signal for some snow in the interior New England area. Heck, even in the Great Lakes region, the Tughill Plateau, the Adirondacks, down to West Virginia, and a little signal across the northern sections of the lower 48, but nothing too crazy. I do think there'll be an opportunity for some severe weather with this. And this is the smoothed out ensemble mean for dew points. This really is the best way to measure how humid it is outside. So it's a thermodynamic that we look for a lot when we're really, really far out. So dew points in the 60s and higher, certainly a supportive dew point for severe weather, a supportive thermodynamic. And if we start off about a week from today, you already got a big plume of moisture building into the western areas of the Deep South and areas of the Southern Plains up the Mississippi Valley. And if we extend this, we can get this in motion. Come on, we've been rolling so good. If we get this in motion into like early of the last week of October, so we're getting into the morning of the 27th. If I can get this in motion a little bit better here, we can see the spike in moisture all the way up the Mississippi River Valley here, getting all the way to even to the Buda, Missouri, into Illinois. So this is 8 days from now. So you see this sort of spike in moisture right into here. So why is this happening? Well, it's because we have a trough digging down, and at the base of this trough flows going just like this. So what is this doing? This is yanking up moist air out of the Gulf and just the more southern areas that have more moisture in the atmosphere. So it's typical stuff, just like what you see in spring, but this is secondary severe weather stuff, so it's the fall. So, we continue to work our way, say, deeper into that week, into the 28th, and it flatlines a little bit, but we got a lot of moisture still hanging out down into the Deep South states. So what I'm trying to say is we could have moist air, but you can tell as we get into the last couple days of October, it looks like the air mass really clears out and our dew points drop back down to the 50s and lower. But there is that period, I really think, as we're into early next week, that we need to watch for severe weather for kind of the same areas that just dealt with it yesterday. And here's the flow that's going to be generated off this big dip in the jet in this trough, and here it comes. The area is in the purple. This is a lot of flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere, the mid levels, the ensemble here. And I love pivotal weather, but sometimes it could just be so slow when I tab over. So I'll apologize if it's just moving so slow there. But here it comes. We're getting into next Monday, and like I said, we got the moisture into this area right here. The flow's a little bit displaced, but it's over somewhat. So I just really think we got to watch maybe Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week for some severe weather chances, as, of course, just like with any big trough dig jet, you're going to have a buckle in the jet that's going to bring a lot of wind flow to the south, and it might just be straight out the west, might be from the southwest to the northeast, whatever it may be. We're definitely going to have a risk of thermodynamics being overlapped by kinematics. So wind energy is what kinematics is. So just got to watch for this, guys. The next thing to discuss is the tropics. Now, the sun is going down on a wave we are watching. This is Invest 98L. And I really think that this is likely going to be Melissa in the next few days or so. That is our next named storm. But this thing is, by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, this thing will be fully into the Eastern Caribbean. We got a lot of unsettled weather moving over the Lesser Antilles right now. And I'm concerned about this storm system because I think that the further this gets into the Caribbean, the more fuel it will have to work with, tropical fuel, and we'll discuss that as we go. But as of right now, this is now bumped up to a high risk of tropical development, which is high risk is symbolized here in the red. So this now has a 70% chance to develop into a depression or a next named storm in the next 7 days. And it actually has a, let's see, in the next 2 days, it has a 30% chance. So National Hurricane Center is all over it. Let's go over the latest model runs from today. We'll start off around 3 days from now. This is Wednesday morning, October the 22nd. This is the Euro. Okay, the Euro lags with this. It kind of keeps this weak for a while, gets this deeper into the Caribbean, then we get into Friday. Okay, then we get into Saturday. It's just a one big broad area of low pressure. It's a weaker low pressure. Central low is only 1,008. And then we get all the way to about a week from today. It's about the same. It doesn't change much from what it is now to what it could be a week from today. It's really after day 7 when this thing really begins to deepen, strengthen, and honestly become a bit more of a concern. On the Euro, not a forecast, it begins to strengthen this into a hurricane, where it then goes up and hits Cuba, gets north of Cuba, brings impacts to the Bahamas, Turks, Caicos Islands, and then gets awfully close to doing something crazy and wild to the eastern U.S. In fact, last night's run did do that crazy and wild scenario. And I'll show you the rest of this run here in a second. The latest GFS is a new one running right now, but we don't have enough of it to really show it. GFS continues to like the idea of this developing quicker. So about mid to late week, we already have Tropical Storm Melissa. And as soon as this thing gains strength, it really begins to stall. And that's the scary part of this. Where does this stall? Right? We don't want it to stall just offshore of any island in the Greater Antilles, like whether it's Hispaniola, Jamaica, Cuba, Puerto Rico. But I really think that this could have a really broadened, moist field. So, I mean, there could be a lot of activity well away from the center. I definitely don't think this is going to be some sort of compact tropical system. But we get into Friday, we have a major hurricane just south of Hispaniola. And it's moving slow, it's crawling. And then it hits Hispaniola, the higher terrain, shreds it apart. That's why you see the millibar number drop here, but it brings devastating impacts if this is the way it unfolds. If you live in Hispaniola, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, I really want you to pay attention to this. But this thing just kind of hangs out around right on top of Hispaniola on the GFS. And it's consistently shown something like this. This thing is huge. All right. And then we get past day 7 and it finally gets north. And it actually re-strengthens and it just takes its sweet time, and then it finally hightails it out of here. But man, I mean, look, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, that's almost a week where this just hangs around the same general area. Not a forecast, but there is an opportunity for this to have really slowed steering currents. Now, the Euro AI model, by the time we get into Wednesday morning, has this at almost tropical storm status, but it doesn't strengthen it much more than that. But it does follow what the GFS is showing, with this just kind of coming up on the southern shorelines of Hispaniola and delivering a lot of heavy rainfall because of the slow nature of this, and then just kind of fizzles out and gets north and then actually moves east. It does not get as far west as what the Euro is showing. Now the icon follows the Euro as far as where it goes, and this is the icon from this afternoon. This is basically a week from today. It has almost a major hurricane, if not a major hurricane, right smack in the middle of the Caribbean, just southwest of Jamaica. So it's further west, just like the Euro, but it's much stronger than the Euro. The theme is, guys, the further west this gets, the more it's going to probably bring impacts to more people. But the thing that's unfortunate about this is this wave is looking solid as it gets into the Caribbean. We were hoping that it was going to fizzle apart before getting into the Caribbean. But I mean, here it is right here. It looks, I mean, it already has that cyclonic motion to it in the low levels. I mean, you can kind of already see just the rotating nature of it with the mid-level convection right on top of it. It just, I'm not going to sit here and to say that I'm scared or super concerned or trying to pump fear into anybody, but I just don't got the best feeling about this system. But, you know, one thing I'll mention is, I mentioned this at the very beginning of the video. There is an outside shot chance, a very small chance, that we could have a connection between the storm system we just discussed in the beginning of the video and the tropics, what we're discussing now. And here it is. This is our big storm system showing up on the operational Euro. Okay. This is the morning of Halloween, the October 31st. And you can see the wind barbs, how the flow's going like this, comes like this, and then it goes up like that. Tropical system's right here. The last thing you want is this tropical system filling the flow and getting slung right into the northeast, kind of like Sandy. So you don't want any connection to happen here, or we're in for some trouble. So if we end up getting this storm system we just discussed, and we end up getting this tropical system being right here, we gotta have we gotta have better timing for this not to connect, or it's going to do something wild. So there is an outside shot chance there's some sort of connection that is worth mentioning, in my opinion. Now the Euro Ensemble, you know, it kind of follows its operational run and wants most of these members hanging out pretty far west in the Caribbean. But once you get past 8 or 9, you start to see these members get north, which is a bit alarming. Okay, for our friends and neighbors down here in the Caribbean. And it ain't over for us up here in the Gulf or off the coast of Southeast or Florida either. Okay, it's hard to get tropical systems in October, late October especially, to sort of just go like this, because we have frequent cold fronts digging down that's going to really push these systems kind of like this, or really like this, something like that. But you never know. You never know. Okay, and then you look at the GFS ensemble. It likes the idea, of course, of this just strengthening faster, then getting north and bringing more of an impactful scenario look to Hispaniola. But listen, you get a week from today, there is still many members, some of the members off the GFS ensemble that do get further west, explode in strength. All right, as you can see the screen really brightening up. In fact, the signal is louder on the GFS ensemble for the more western scenario than the earlier scenario of the further east scenario. A lot of scenarios there. I'm telling you, we're just to round off this video, guys. And I didn't think I was gonna make a video tonight, but I really think we're in store for something wacky for the end of October, and wacky, and maybe not in the best ways. Now, I don't know if this storm system around the end of October is going to be a super high impact storm system, but I think that it could bring some wild and weird weather. And I think what makes all of this wild and weird is the fact that we could have the potential for a big time hurricane down here, and at the same time, some sort of big storm system swinging across the country. So just a recipe for something weird. Okay, so that's all I got. We'll do it all again tomorrow morning. Have a feeling the next week and a half is going to get pretty active on the channel. So thank y'all for the support. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. God bless.